Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's get started. Today, November 22nd, our workshop and mentoring standing committee is now organizing professional career workshop in industry or government sector. We express our gratitude to the panelists for accepting our invitation to share their experiences, expertise, and quarters prior to secure employment and agree to engage in discussion with our fellow members. So we would like to welcome all of you participants and panelists. Next. Uh, we, NHERI GSC member, collaborate each other to build diverse graduate community for natural hazard researchers, where we able to connect with diverse mentor as well. We attend natural hazard workshop and career workshop, always encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout our conversation and collaboration, where we learn about the impact of research on natural hazard practice and also gain leadership skills or and receive update of funding opportunities. We have provided here with the link and QR code to join with NHERI GSC, where you may able to find and interact with like-minded grad students. You may know each other, collaborate to, and also able to explore where to go for support and resources for your research. NHERI GSC has also provided opportunity to lead fellow grad students and to mentor by leading faculty expert in natural hazard fields. Now, we would like to invite Mr. Abhipriya Chakrabarti to host the session and proceed the conversation with panelists. Dear participant, you may ask your questions during the Q&A session and feel free to drop your questions ahead on the chat box. Harman will support our moderator to compile the questions. Abhi, over to you. You can now start.
Thank you, Rajendra. Thank you, Harman, for being a great support for this thing, and we are really missing Robin. So I'll be host today. I am Abhipriya Chakrabarti, right now doing my PhD in geotechnical engineering in Jackson State University. I'm also serving as a chair of social media and outreach of NHERI GSC. It's a great opportunity to serve over there. So as everyone is saying about NHERI GSC, just a small brief. So it's an organization for the graduate students who are really interested for the natural hazards, and we are really good organization for all the people who are really interested on the natural hazard thing and any of the expertise. Please do join. So as a part of different sort of activities that we are doing over here, we already, as Rajendra already told about it, we have organized a professional career workshop from the workshop and mentoring standing committee. And we are really excited, some very amazing panel members over there to share their experience and expertise with us. So first of all, I like to invite Dr. Natalie Coleman, and she is really amazing. And she was an EC member of NHERI GSC earlier, and right now is a NHERI GSC alumni. She has completed her PhD from Texas A&M University on 2024. And right now she's working on U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on the Southwestern Division Regional Planning and Environmental Center. So second, I am inviting Dr. Reza Filizadeh. He has completed his PhD from University of Vermont in 2019. He's right now working as a project consultant and also has been involved in conducting seismic fragility evaluation of structures, systems, and components, and his expertise includes structural modeling, reliability, and fragility analysis, and probabilistic risk assessment. So Dr. Filizadeh is also serving as an associate member of the ACI 7 Seismic Subcommittee for the 2028 cycle. Next, I'm inviting Dr. Karim Mostafa. He has completed his PhD from Florida International University in 2022, and he has already having an 8 years of experience in structural engineering. Dr. Mostafa has a great expertise in structural engineering and design, finite element analysis, simulation, concrete and steel design for a wide range of structures, towers, bridge, and pre-stressed concrete. And finally, I'm going to invite Dr. Edwin Rajeev. He has completed his PhD in civil and coastal engineering from the University of Florida. He is right now working as a project engineer in where he's specializing in coastal resilience. He has a great expertise in coastal resilience and sustainable engineering across Florida, and has an integrated expertise in mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, and software engineering. So these are the amazing panel members that we have. We are really grateful and also having a very warm welcome to all of you guys. And first of all, I want to listen to you how you're feeling, Dr. Natalie Coleman.
As feeling in general or just today?
About today, yeah, because we have already, we had a big experience working with you on all of this thing. So how you're feeling to be providing an expert experience about to all the NHERI GSC members.
Yeah, it feels a little surreal. I was very involved in NHERI GSC and still am to a point. It was great being able to be a part of the organization and give back in the mini conference and in my role as former treasurer. So it's great to come back and see some familiar faces and hopefully be able to give some advice to students who are either already part of your GSC or considering it. So I would definitely recommend it because it really helped me when I was closing out my graduate career.
Great. So I have a small question. I will be starting from you actually. So how you have decided the career path that right now you are, having? So what actually motivated you to do that?
Yes, the big question everyone wants to know, right?
Yeah.
Either academia or industry. So I will say that when I was applying in my last year, I applied to a range of opportunities, both in academia, whether that was faculty positions or postdocs, and in government as a project manager or the civil engineering role that I'm in now. And so I would definitely encourage people to apply to different opportunities because you're able to, as they're interviewing you, you're able to interview them and you can see whether that particular lifestyle fits with what you want to do. And so at the end of the day, I was more focused on not the particular label that I was wearing, but more what I would actually be doing in the job. And so in the government position I was in, I was able to do a mix of my personal and professional goals. My professional goal was to become a licensed civil engineer. I also wanted to be able to manage projects and work directly with stakeholders and communities, and I was able to do that in the government. And some personal goals is I just felt that that lifestyle fit more with how I wanted to balance work and life, and had opportunities to travel and to connect with other people. So that's where I ended up in the position at the U.S. Army Corps.
Yeah, that's great. So I, uh, I am going to ask the same question to Dr. Rajeev. So what actually motivated you to join the job right now you are having it? And after completing your PhD, so how you have, selected this job for, this is the thing that you really wanted to know.
For me, it was going back to what Natalie was saying, I mean, similar kind of goals, like, wanted to be a licensed engineer, wanted to do cool stuff, I mean, that was mainly my thing. Like, I was always passionate about engineering, and that's what made me stick around academia for the longest time. I was always delaying graduation. I had a job after my master's, and I'm like, do I need to do it? No. Then I was like, okay, let me stick around in school for a little longer, and then I went to do my PhD. And I did it, and then I was still considering academia till then. I was considering academia for the longest time, but then when so back in 2021, during my third year of my PhD, I was offered an internship with the company that I'm working right now. And when I started working with them, they were giving me the same opportunities to do, I mean, I would say more freedom. Uh, with the kind of work that I was doing, like, I mean, even though I'm in coastal engineering, they were letting me, so I have a background in mechanical and aerospace engineering. So I come in there and they were letting me explore all kinds of methodologies, but not restraining me or making me feel like, oh, I have to fulfill this particular budget or fulfill this particular project. There was no such kind of restrictions. So for me, it was essentially the company and the working environment that made me go into it. And then again, I went back to them for an internship in 2022. And then when I graduated, they offered me, when I was about to graduate, they offered me a full-time job. And then by then I had built a relationship, and so by the time I joined the company, I was given like free reign over whatever I could do whatever I wanted to do in terms of as a scientist as well as an industry practitioner. So for me, for me, it was the enterprise or that company that made me switch from, those goals of academia to industry. Was okay, this environment where I was able to do research as well as apply it right away into a practical application rather than waiting for funding or any of those kind of things. So that was what made me come into the into this. And at the same time, I'm still doing research. Like even though I'm in industry, I still keep on doing research. At the same time, I'm also a faculty at the University of Florida right now, so I get to balance both. So that's why I went for this path.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, when I was checking your web, I was profile in your LinkedIn. I was really, you have a very interesting, profile with having aerospace engineering and the coastal engineering. So right now, where you are working, how these two, disciplines you are working together, how they are, aligned over there? Are they helping each other, or you
So
exclusively working in coastal? Yeah.
So my PhD, my master's, I specialize in aerospace engineering, but to be specific, like going into the specifics, I specialize in computational fluid dynamics, like high fidelity, high performance computing, numericals, Navier-Stokes, solving Navier-Stokes equations, like it was high fidelity simulations. So how does it apply in industry? So in coastal engineering, it is still new. It's really, it's at a really nascent stage where we're applying CFD in real world applications. So that's one place where I'm actually using it. Like I'm actually developing or adding, how I would put it is like I am kind of accelerating the use of CFD and all those kind of methodologies within coastal engineering. So that's what I'm doing right now. Along with that, but from an organizational standpoint, I'm also setting up, like with all this experience that I had in aerospace engineering with setting up distributed systems, computer software engineering stuff that I did hardcore over there, I'm actually in charge of setting up all the computing infrastructure within the company as well, like all the cloud computing resources, and also making sense, like from an organization standpoint. Okay, we have this much R&D money, this much budget. Okay, for this project, how do I allocate this level of computing resources? So I mean, those kind of things are transferable. Those kind of expertise was actually transferable. So I would say it's more computing that I learned in aerospace engineering that I'm bringing into my practice over here.
Yeah, that's a great, great point that you have said there. So learning something that that you can transfer the expertise to something else, that can be a very big plus point whenever somebody works in industry and whatever they work with. So thank you, Dr. Rajeev. And right now I'm asking the question to Dr. Filizadeh. Please pardon me if I pronounce it wrong. My question is actually regarding, we were actually having a discussion with Natalie a few minutes earlier that all the PhD students, sometimes they feel like, what we are going to do in the academia, whether we are going to be in academia or in the we'll be going back to the industry. If I go back to the industry, what will be my, how my expertise will be evaluated over there? Do I need the PhD? So as a student, you are working after a PhD, you are working in the industry for a long period of time. So how you see this thing? What are the, career paths, as a PhD student, they can look after in the industry and the government and whatever the sectors that they have, if they are a PhD student over there? And does it actually, fight, or it really helps?
Okay. First of all, you're pronouncing my name correctly. So
thank you.
yeah, that's correct. So my advice actually to someone who is planning or who is thinking of like changing the track from academia, from being a long time in academia doing PhD, is to be open to change. It's always good to think about other career paths. It's always good to try other paths as well. So first, you need to learn about the differences. Maybe you can do your own research, being involved in this kind of workshop and events. So it's all helpful. But you need to keep in mind that there are different environments. In an industry, as my own experience, I felt like it's a fast-paced environment compared to what we used to get during our PhD, during our presence in academia. And you first you need to convince yourself about the change, and because you will be asked during the interviews that what's your plan, why are you changing your track from being in academia to an industry or other kind of government positions. So the other thing is that you need to do all this networking through available resources if you want to change the track. So that there are so many networking tools and platforms these days that are helpful. And maybe my last advice to someone who wants to do this change is to don't underestimate what you learn from these all the technical skills in your PhD, because you will be more accountable when you are in the industry. Everyone expects you to be like a fast learner and help with all the challenging and complex problems that they are solving day to day. And yes, but going back to all the basics that you have learned during your bachelor's, master's, PhD, especially because you did focused research, these are all helpful when you're changing the track and want to be in industry.
Yeah, that's a great point that you have mentioned, that we have to be very open whenever we go into the industry, because and also trusting on the basics that we have learned. But how your PhD actually helped you whenever you work, whatever the career path that you are having, how it helped you actually?
So actually, the position that I have applied to, I would say only hires PhD students, I mean pre-PhD graduates. So these are, I've seen many of these positions, like they're increasing day by day, which are more focused, which are more specialized, as it's more related to my research, because what I'm doing right now is like seismic analysis, seismic risk assessment, and all those things which are not mainly taught during the bachelor's in any kind of like engineering programs. So this is how my PhD and my research background helped me being like fit in this position. And I'm also continuing my research as part of my job right now. I'm getting involved with some conferences, so we are writing some papers during each year. So these are all the technical skills that I could transfer from my PhD to the position that I'm having right now.
Yeah, that's great. So do you have any specific recommendation that, okay, these are because you're already telling about, we have to trust on the basics and we have to keep ourselves open. Do you have any specific expertise, the graduate students that really they focus on, that these are the expertise that they need to, develop on their PhD life so that it will help them on the industries? Any specific recommendation on this thing?
Yes, if they want to stay in the field of like risk assessment, natural hazard, and all these things, it's better to maybe expand their knowledge in statistics. And these days, it also translates to applications in machine learning stuff and data analysis, data science, and all these things. These are really helpful tools to, to get a job and to be like excellent in the job that you are doing.
So you are recommending highly about the statistics and data analysis and these parts?
Mainly statistics, yeah, because it's helpful for all the hazard modeling, like natural hazard modeling, and all sort of like, I don't want to underestimate like the basics of civil engineering, structural engineering. Those are all, those are all fundamentals, and I'm sure that everyone here is expert in these fields. But if you want to expand, if you want to be like on top of the peers, it's better maybe to start from statistics, like basics of statistics and its applications.
Thank you, Dr. Filizadeh.
Sure.
That will be really greatly helpful, I think. My next question actually to Dr. Karim Mostafa. How are you, Dr. Karim Mostafa?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So including Dr. I want to add something about this. What are the, whenever you transfer to your job, when you have decided that you'll be working on the industry, what actually really motivated you and how your PhD helped you on this thing?
Okay, so first of all, when I finished or actually before finishing my PhD in December 2022, and then I start to look at jobs. At the beginning, I started looking at the industry because I know from the beginning that I don't want to pursue like a career in academia after finishing my PhD. So I decided that I would like to go to the industry from day one. Then I start to look at jobs in the industry based on what I'm doing in my PhD, which is like kind of related to wind engineering, like fluid structure interaction, like all these kind of like hurricane events and wind extreme events and their effects into the buildings and how the buildings behave as aerodynamics in these kind of events. So when I start looking at jobs, I mainly focused in forensic structural engineer. So maybe like some people, like especially me, I mean, like I'm during my grad school, I wasn't familiar with that terminology. Like, what is a forensic structural engineer? What we do exactly there? Like, is it just like some sort of like failure investigations, or we have to wait until like a natural hazard happen or something so we can go there and start doing investigations and so on? But it's not like that at all. It's this is one of the aspects for forensic structural engineer. But mainly we deal with anything going on with existing buildings, with existing bridges, with like any sort of structure that what we need to do there, we need to figure out what's going on. So that's what the main thing to motivate me. Like I would like to have my hands in practical field studies in doing our research, how to solve that problem. If we have like, sometimes we have problems that are pretty straightforward, which like we usually do like some sort of like analysis or repairs for like spore repairs or like steel maintenance or like some sort of kind of like changing this structural system to work as a different like building occupancy or changing the type of the building or whatever. So we have to do more analysis to make sure that the existing structures can withstand the new loads and so on. But sometimes we have some sort of like different and innovative structure that we need to find a solution for what's going on. If it's something that we haven't usually seen that, or like, I mean, it's kind of like not like a daily task. So we have to make sure that, okay, how we're going to approach the research or how we're going to approach a specific methodology to address this concern or address this problem. So that's kind of one of the main thing that motivates me, like, okay, I would like to do more about that, and I would like to learn more about that, and I would like to put my hands in just like doing something that every day would be different than the day before.
Thank you. So how was your first days? So because you completed your PhD, I think it took like 5 years, right? So whenever you completed your PhD, then you went to the industry, and as Dr. Filizadeh was saying about it, so the industry was much pushing. It's not like the academia. So in the research, we sometimes take time, investigate the matters, go for the papers and the journals. But in the industry, the approach may be different. So whenever you entered into the job, what are the first problems or the obstacles that students can face, and how they can come up from these things so that they can adapt on these things, all the problems over there?
Yeah. So one main difference between being a PhD student and working in the industry is the time. There is a work time that you work. Like, I mean, during your research, sometimes you work during the weekends, or sometimes you work during the night and just like do whatever you would like to do in the morning. So, I mean, you have your own flexibility as long as you have, like, you are doing your research and you are aligned that with your advisor. But in the industry, usually you have like a specific work time, even if you are flexible in doing whatever you would like to do. But as long as you are dealing with contractors, as long as you are dealing with property managers, with homeowner associations, with any kind of like state or DOTs or whatever, so they have this specific time that you should be working from 8 to 5, for example, or 9 to 5. Yeah, of course, you can do your own stuff after that, like if you still have some sort of work to do. But I mean, usually you have to be dedicated with that timeline between like 8 or 9 in the morning till 5 p.m., which was something that was different to me because I usually prefer to work at night during my PhDs. Then when I transitioned to the industry, I have to work like most of the day. So that's one thing that you have to make sure that, okay, that's going to be one thing that you don't have that flexibility. And I don't mean flexibility, but that you don't have your own freedom. No, of course, you have your own freedom. You can adjust your own time as long as it aligns with the time that you should do your work. So that's one thing. I believe it's the most important thing to consider when transitioning from the PhD or like as a grad student to work in the industry. Then in the industry or in the research, you have more time because your advisor know that you will be here for like whatever 3-4 years or on average. So I finished my PhD in 3.5 years, which was good. So still I had the time to develop some methods for codifications, for wind loads, whatever. But in the industry, you have a specific deadline for that project. Like you got like the notice to proceed from the client. You have a specific timeline to do your condition assessment, to provide them with a report, to do your recommendation, then start the construction period phase. So you have a specific timeline. It's not like the research, you have your fund already and okay, you have like 1-year goal or 2-year goals or whatever. But for the industry, you still have like a specific deadline, especially if it's a state or a DOT or a governmental project. Mostly they are in a rush and they would like to finish that. If it's something like a stadium or a hurricane shelter or something that's funded by FEMA, so they have a specific fund for a specific timeline or a specific year. So they have to make sure that they align that fund to that project and finish the project within that timeline. So you have to make sure that you can focus your work and you can focus your concentration just to finalize everything within the time frame that they assign to you.
Thank you, Dr. Mostafa. That was really a great point that you have mentioned. So as a PhD student, so they can be, aware of the thing that whenever you go to the industry, they have to be, adjust with the time adjustment and all of these things, because we have a very specific deadline and the time constraints over there. So do you have any specific recommendations? And these are the, soft skills, and these are the skills that, if somebody goes into the industry, they can learn so that it can help them on the, on the field or industry?
Yeah, so I believe it mainly depends on what you are doing to do as a part of the industry. Like, are you going to work like in a design firm or like a forensic structural engineering firm or like wind tunnel consultant if you come from like wind engineering background, or catastrophic model hardening? So you need like to have some sort of expertise in programming and coding. So it depends on which route or which path you're going to take. But in my case, which mainly like towards the analysis, towards the design, towards the field investigation, I usually say like PhD is a tool. Like it will not harm you by any means. Yeah, of course, sometimes in terms of like field experience, sometimes like if you don't do your PhD and just go directly to the industry, you might gain that experience during the time that you did your PhD. So I'm not saying it's a waste of time, of course, but I mean, after a while, you should ramp up using your PhD tools, what you have learned in your PhD, how you can, like your technical writing. That's one thing I found like many people like have issues like writing a technical report or like giving a condition assessment report. Like usually we come from the PhD having a good technical writing. That's something that we learn during our PhD, because we as engineer, like we are not like kind of like English background, or I mean like it's not kind of like theoretical or something that we have to deal with English or with writing. Usually we as engineer, we are more into the analytical part. So writing is some sort of kind of like we have to develop or we have to strengthen. And that's one thing we do during our PhD. So that's one thing that it helps me a lot in my work, like just having like a good technical writing. And also you can do your own research. Like wherever you got stuck in something, you have a problem that you would like to work on, you have your own tool to do your research. You know how to start like looking for a specific area or like writing a paper. You have the ability to like to read a paper or like skim through a paper very quickly and just try to identify the main points you need and stuff like that. So I think that's one of the things that's helpful. But again, like some other career path, just like they mainly do like coding from 8 to 5, like catastrophic modeling. So if you are going to end up something like that, you should be expert in coding, or should be expert in like using MATLAB, Python, C++, whatever the tool you are going to use to be helpful for you and to be very beneficial to what you are doing.
That's great. So my next question actually regarding the networking. So we hear a lot about the networking stuff. So I'm going to ask the question to Dr. Coleman. So how you rate the networking? You know, how whenever a student will be working as a PhD student, how he should focus on the networking, how he can make some good networks that can help her or him on the next career path in the industry.
Well, that's a very good question. I think when it comes to networking, you need to leverage the connections you have in academia and outside of it, because you never know who you're going to be working alongside with. So, like organizations like NHERI GSC may let you have some connections in terms of people that are in different engineering subdisciplines, like somebody in wind engineering or somebody in like coastal engineering. I'm still very connected also to the college organizations, Women in Science and Engineering. They've reached out to me before in terms of like volunteering, or even if you're end up moving into a new city, those connections can help you get started. Or if you ever want to branch out into a new field. I think also if you go to conferences, make sure to meet with people there, both in industry and outside of it. So I know that the Natural Hazards Workshop has like a practitioners meeting that you can go and interact with people, and you know, just ask if you could get coffee with them or chat with them. I know that after conferences, I've been able to Zoom, like do Zoom videos with people just to see what our research was about. And now I follow them on social media, so I'm able to see how their career progressed, whether they went into academia or industry. I've also had people reach out to me when they've had questions as they're starting to apply, because they know that I, you know, went into government or I set up a faculty application. So just start making those connections and reaching out to people. So LinkedIn is a good way to sort of get softly connected to people, right? And then follow up by sending them a message, you know. And, you know, we're all PhD students, so we love to talk about our own research. So it's not that hard to reach out to people in that way. But yeah, I would say don't be afraid of networking. And there are many different ways. It doesn't just have to be in person. It can also be virtually, or even just a friend of a friend. So I might not know somebody who can help you out, but I might know a friend. And because they know me, they'll be more inclined to help you. So that's also a way to leverage those connections.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman. So I'm going to ask the same question to Dr. Filizadeh. So how how the PhD students will be, what is your point if you want to add with Dr. Coleman with that about the networking?
Well, so as Dr. Coleman said, I'm starting from online platforms like LinkedIn and all those things. So you can basically build your network. It's going to be helpful at some point, as you can find like your friends, I mean, your first layer of like connections, or maybe second and other like people. It's always good to meet people, like stay in touch with them, read their news, be updated in whatever is going on in the industry or other fields. Also, conferences is a good way to get in touch with people. There are some sessions and workshops focused on the like industry application of whatever we are doing in our PhD, whatever we focus on in our research. Also, you can career fairs. I know that most of the companies join these career fairs in these schools. So those are a good way to meet with the hiring managers or mid-level or maybe junior engineer or people of the company and talk to them, learn about what they're doing, and again, stay in touch with them through email, phone calls, or some other tools. Also, you can always ask your advisor He or she may have some friends in industry, or maybe he or she has some like industry background, which could be helpful for you as well. Also getting in touch with recent graduates, something like these panels and events. These are all helpful to learn something about the possible career paths that you can have or you can follow for after graduating from PhD. And the other thing is, again, it's mostly online, in person. It's a hybrid thing. I know that there are ASC chapters in each state region. Those are also helpful. They always invite some people to talk, either from industry, either from academia. You can gauge, you can get a sense which one works better for you.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Filizadeh. So my next question is Dr. Rajeev. Regarding the professional development. So we have already had a great discussion on what are the skills. Dr. Filizadeh was explaining about sticking to the basics, and also Dr. Filizadeh and Dr. Mostafa has explained about some of the stuff that we need to learn, that it will be very helpful to go to the next step. So do you have any specific training or professional development that the PhD student that they can focus on apart from their research, that they can help, that these things will help them on the industries? What are your suggestion on this thing?
One thing in terms of professional development is, I think it is, that's very, very important, is communication. Like purely communication in terms of, like how Natalie said, like how we like talking about our research, but how, I mean, like how do you put together, or explain your research in the best way to a relevant, or I mean to a particular audience in a relevant way, I mean a way that's relevant to them. That's communication, and that is something you can do only by giving as many I mean being in as many conferences or any these kind of sessions, like even with GSC, the mini symposiums, mini conferences, even within your respective universities. Like even at when I was at University of Florida, like every year we had this graduate symposium, and I used to always present there. Like all 4 years I presented, and the best part was, like, the first 2 years I was so bad at it, but then the next 2 years, the third year I won the best poster. The final year, my final year of my PhD, I won the best presentation. So, and that's not one department. That's everyone from liberal arts all the way to engineering, electrical engineering, everyone. So it's a diverse crowd. So so the thing that I learned then was how to explain stuff to a broader audience, and I think that is very important in terms of professional development as a scientist or whoever. I know this is a pretty generic professional development suggestion, but coming into the industry, that's one thing that. So I work as a consultant, right? Like in coastal engineering, I'm a consultant for different kind of clients. Like it helped me progress through my career in the past 2 to 3 years, like way faster, because I am dealing with higher profile clients already within my second year of industry experience, only because I can speak their language. So, and that was only because of knowing how to speak technical jargon in a non-technical way. Because I'm a coastal engineer who's talking about fluid mechanics and wave loads and everything, to a structural engineer and eventually a contractor. So I can talk to, what I learned was being able to talk to different people at different levels and different technical expertise. So yeah, so that's one thing I think, and that can only be done by communicating and expressing or explaining your research and the work that you've done to, my sister's a dentist, so it's easy for me. For me, the way I learn is I just start talking to her. She has no clue what I'm talking about, and then I try to make her understand, and then, so that's how I learned doing this. So yeah, so that's one thing
Yeah,
find
that's a
someone
great point. I
else.
think that's a great
Yeah,
point, I believe. So I think all the PhD students, they should make some friends that they are not aligned to their field, so they can explain their research to them, and it will give them some sort of training how they explain their work.
yes.
So do you have any specific, recommendation, or, these professional developments that you have already told about, how to explain, communicate your works? And apart from that, is there anything specific that you have in your mind that, okay, these things you can do or you can search?
that is, I mean, as I just said earlier, I mean, just making, I mean, having a
Connections and
network, connections, but from a broader engineering or, other domains. Like, I mean, if someone is doing machine learning, artificial intelligence, I mean, can you explain? I mean, a lot of civil engineers are getting into that. A lot of PhD researchers are doing that. I mean, I mean, one thing I could do was like, since I was from an aerospace background, I could really see the parallels that was in civil and coastal engineering, and I was able to bridge the connection there. Same thing with people who are doing a lot of machine learning and AI stuff nowadays. Like, why don't you start applying your methodologies or think about your methodologies in different applications in other domains, just as an experiment, as a thought experiment? So it's like it's translational, right? So you are able to translate, whatever you're doing in one domain with the same methodology. How do you? It's like using CFD, computational fluid dynamics, in arteries and veins. But the same thing you can do it, that multi-phase computational fluid dynamics. You can do it in ocean waves. It's the same thing, but how do you translate? It's the same physics. I mean, I think that is one way of,
I
that's
understand.
one way of training yourself. That's another way, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Rajeev. What about Dr. Mostafa? So this is the last question that we'll be having, and then we will be, proceeding to the audience question after this panel discussion. So I want to end up this discussion with Dr. Mostafa. So do you have any specific recommendation for, building up the networking and building up some good effective communications as a student that they can, they can get benefited whenever they go back to the industry?
I think I don't have anything else to add after Natalia, Reza, and Edwin. What they have said is all like great points. You have to start developing your network in like maybe like student chapters in your like university, in your state, in your city, in your state. Go to conferences, start like go to career fairs, like start meeting like hiring managers from different companies, start like knowing about that company, what do they do, like what are their scope of work in whatever projects they do, and so on. So you start like building your network with these people, and also look for internship. Like, I mean, that's one thing I haven't done during my PhD, and I believe it's so important to do an internship during your PhD or during your grad school. As I mentioned, like I started my PhD like in 2019, so like almost half of my PhD was during COVID time. So I didn't have the chance to have like an internship, but having an internship is very, very, very important, that you start knowing people from that company. That's one thing you can do. And also I mean, that's the basic thing that you can do, just like knowing people from that company and they start knowing you. But the most important part, that you start putting your career towards what you would like to do after you finish. Like, okay, that's the one company I did an internship for during the summer. Do I like what they do, or like does like what I like do what I see every day just like make sense to me and I would like to do it, or I would like to look for a different internship, like maybe next year or the following summer or whatever, and start looking for something else. So that's one thing. Going to conferences, as Natalia said, like we are very efficient in speaking with different colleagues or with professors in our research and saying that in details. So go to conferences, meet other grad students, meet other like postdocs, meet other people from the industry if it's kind of like academic and industry conference. And one thing also, as Edwin said, about like how you should develop your communication skills so that you can speak with anyone. Like at some point you have to speak with a contractor, and maybe later in the day we have to speak with like a property manager who is not from engineering background. He might be from a history background. So like how you can develop or deliver your idea, not just from engineering perspective, but from a perspective that anyone can understand. So that's one thing that it's very important as well, like to start developing that and learning like how, yeah, because like we are very efficient in speaking in our like research or what we can do, but I mean it's also good to start like downgrading your communication skills to speak with a broader range of people who don't have that background as you. So that's one thing I believe like it's also very important. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mustafa. I think all the points that you panel members that you have discussed are really helpful. And that's a great point, that we have to develop the communication skill, that we have to deliver the way We want to all the person we are dealing with in the industries. So our panel discussion has already been finished. So right now we are open to any sort of questions from the audience. So feel free to ask any question. I think Rajendra has some questions over there. So I was on the discussion part. Rajendra, you can ask the question by yourself if you want.
Okay, sure, yeah. Being a grad student, so I would like to ask question. Immediately after hearing that you have got a job, what was your first word and how did you and your parents feel about that? Yeah, anyone or all of you can answer this. Yeah.
I think I can start. Once I realized what job I wanted to take, I think my family was really happy that I was staying in Texas. I think I mentioned before how it was a mix of personal and professional reasons why I chose this job. And so location was an important one for me. So they were very happy about that. And I was excited because I wanted to, become a professional engineer. And so, yeah, those were the first feelings that I had.
Okay, I think Peter has a question to the panel members, to everyone. How do you deal with an advisor that doesn't allow his students to do internship? He feels students who use their CPT don't graduate on time. Can anyone share his or her experience about internship during PhD? What are the pros and cons? That's okay. I'm keeping it open.
That is a very tricky question because I'll just give you my experience because I did an internship during my PhD, but I was lucky and unlucky at the same time. So what happened to me was I was running out of funding, and so I was running out of funding during the middle of my PhD, and then I was like, okay, what do I do? So I started applying for internships to cover for my summer, and I had like one more semester, and then so I got this internship, and then my professor didn't have a choice but to let me go. But then what happened was, once I went for the internship, I got one of the NSF grants that I wrote. It got accepted, and all of a sudden I get $500,000, like of research funding, and then by then I already built a relationship with my company, and I bought research from my company to my professors. So mine is rare. So I mean, since you said CPT, that's the issue. So I mean, you have it's most professors I know will not allow the students to go for internships if you're an international student, because the whole agenda is to get international students to do a lot of research, and they know they're going to be dedicated. They have a time limit. They're on the clock. So so that's kind of the sad part with this. But then I was one of those students who did an internship during my PhD. I'm just telling you this was my experience. But I mean, the only way you can go about this is only by talking to your advisor, convincing him that you'll be fine. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Rajeev. So I think Jordan has a question. Jordan, you can ask by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, so mine's kind of somewhat of a two-parter, but how did your PhD, and this is kind of open to both sides of the spectrum. I know some of y'all are more on the research side, some of y'all are more on the practical industry side. But how did your PhD play a role in the actual interview process? Was that something, I mean, obviously it was something y'all probably specifically discussed, but then I know that as a PhD student, you get a very specific focus and you start working in a very specific area of a broad field. How did you kind of manage that expectation in terms of moving into industry and maybe broadening your horizons in terms of what you actually want to do? So for example, I do a lot of data science, and I'm not necessarily opposed to doing that in industry, but I'd like to be able to have more practical experience than I currently do in my research, if that makes sense.
That's a great question.
So I think I can answer that question. So one thing is, like, during your interviewing process, based on what you have done in your PhD, you feel that you are very confident to speak about your research. You feel that you are very confident to have like whatever, like 1 hour or like 1.5 hour like interview with someone like from the talent acquisition team, or is a unit manager or whatever directors. So you feel that you have the knowledge that you can speak whatever you would like to ask, and that knowledge you can start build about like from that, like on that knowledge into your industry position. Like, I mean, they don't expect you to know everything once you start. And that's the thing, like you have, like they have to teach you something. They have to train you about like, for example, like non-destructive testing. Like I did my research in like wind engineering law. So like, I mean, some of the non-destructive testing I studied, but I haven't done that in the field. So that's one thing they teach you at the beginning. You have to be very like kind of like they expect you that you will not be very familiar with everything. So that's one thing that's totally fine. You don't have to worry about that. But as long as like you have the confidence to, and you have the enthusiasm to learn, you have the enthusiasm to like to say like, okay, I will be able and I'm capable like to learn that, or to do my own research, to start like doing that. That's one of the most like some skill or talent that they are looking for during the interviewing process. I hope that like kind of answer your question, Jordan.
Thank you, Dr. Mostafa. So there are a lot of questions that we are having. We are right now bombarded with a lot of questions over there in the chat. So let me sort some of the questions. The first question is Dr. Filizadeh. We are actually asking the answer to be short right now because we'll be finishing up by 2. Dr. Filizadeh, so how you please describe a typical week of work in your job position? This is the question for you.
Okay. As I maybe already said, my main responsibilities in the work is to do seismic fragility analysis, seismic risk assessment, and all these things for power plants. So the main responsibilities or a week of work or a daily basis work is all related to some span of like from structural modeling, structural analysis, soil structure interaction, fragility and risk assessment, and all these processes from starting. I could be involved in any of these steps, depending on the project need and the tasks. But most of the, so after doing all these technical parts, like a big part of the project or the task is to write, develop reports and calculations. So if I'm the originator of the calculation, someone else will check it. If someone else is the originator, I might check their calculation, their report. So this is another part of the job. And we have so many meetings. If you want to, if you check our schedule, our calendar, we do have like so many meetings about the like checking or follow-up meetings or something like that. We need to provide updates, get updates from others, and apply it to our work. So these are, like I would say, most of the weeks or days that I'm working. So this is what I describe my work.
Okay. So there is another question. I think there are a lot of questions. I'm just picking one question. So how you are rating the, how many opportunities right now on the for the civil engineers? Are there a lot of openings right now? Because there's this sort of question is coming on the chat that they're asking, how do you see the vacancies? Is there a lot of openings right now for the civil engineers? I'm keeping it open for every panelist. This is the last question we are going to have.
I think yes.
I think yes,
there are a lot of there are a lot of positions open. Civil engineering is booming, especially with, at least from natural hazards resiliency standpoint. There's a big push for resiliency. Again, I don't know what the political scenario is gonna look like, but as of now, resiliency is a big point. It's a big question. Everyone's adopting right now, and there's a lot more money and funding that's coming in. For different various kinds of projects. There's a lot. I mean, even in the coastal environment, there's a lot of grants that cities and counties are getting, like actively for for 50 to 70-year designs and everything, adapting all their designs, and there's a lot more money. And because as a consequence of that, there is a lot more jobs and openings. Like, I mean, there are companies with backlogs that goes all the way up to 2033 to 2035 right now, with projects all the way till then. So it's a pretty good market right now for civil engineers.
Thank you to all of our panel members for the amazing discussion. I think you have mentioned some very important topics. And I believe I remember about the communication about the statistics and data analytics part and all the expertise that you are talking about. And it's my great pleasure to moderate this event. I am Abhipriya Chakraborty. So I'm right now handing over to Rajendra to finish it up. And this
Okay.
is all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We organizer team would like to express our thank you to panelists and participants for providing us their time, efforts, and participating in valuable discussion. Surely this session has become more fruitful to our fellow members, our graduate students. Now we are happy to conclude this workshop. Next. So please invite your friends who are graduate students to join with NHERI GSC. Here is the link. You may share the link and QR code to your friends as well. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We also express special thanks to US National Science Foundation for their support and providing us platform to collaborate to all the graduate students over the world. Thank you. Thank you all for participating in this workshop. Yeah.